A woman is behind bars for intentionally drowning her toddler son. At just after 8 p.m. on Tuesday the 18th of June, authorities responded to a domestic disturbance call of residents in the 2600 block of Bowling Long Creek Road in Lauderdale County, Mississippi. When deputies arrived, they found the lifeless body of 2-year-old Kelly McDevitt Jr. and transported his mother Adrienne McDevitt to a local hospital. No information's been released about why she was taken for medical treatment. After initial investigation, authorities gathered enough information to determine that Adrienne forcibly drowned her child and said that she was the only one at the home at the time of his death. On Wednesday the 19th of June, Adrienne was arrested and charged with murder. She remains held at the Lauderdale County Jail on a $500,000 bond. Authorities said they're still waiting the results of an autopsy. The investigation into the matter continues. A 27-year-old man is behind bars for fatally shooting his ex-girlfriend's 15-year-old daughter and wounding her 5-year-old son. The shooting occurred at around 12:30 p.m. on Wednesday the 19th of June at the Park Place Apartments complex at 624th North in Birmingham, Alabama. Authorities said that a suspect stood in the parking lot and fired into the mother's apartment from outside, killing 15-year-old Cornelia Rose Lathan and striking her 5-year-old brother in the leg. Witnesses reported hearing 3 to 4 shots and then saw the suspect run away. The boy was taken to Children's of Alabama for treatment for non-life-threatening injuries. The children's mother, who is pregnant, was later transported by Birmingham Fire and Rescue Service to an area hospital for observation. Authorities said they had responded to the apartment earlier that day for a domestic call, which was verbal and not physical. Investigators identified the mother's ex-boyfriend, 27-year-old Otis Lee Montgomery, as the suspect in the shooting. Less than an hour later, officers located Otis roughly 4 miles away in the 6000 block of 1st Avenue North in Woodlawn, near the Birmingham airport. Otis was arrested and charged with capital murder, attempted murder and discharging a firearm into an occupied building. He remains held at the Birmingham City Jail. The investigation into the matter continues. A 33-year-old man is behind bars for hacking a co-worker to death with a machete during a dispute. The incident occurred at around 3 p.m. on Wednesday the 19th of June at a construction site at 3471 Trade Center Court in North Charleston, South Carolina, when temporary workers 33-year-old Tyrone Clayton Campbell and 57-year-old David Carter got into an argument. Witnesses contacted police on reports of an assault in progress after Tyrone shoved David to the ground and started slashing his face, arms and head with a machete. After hacking David to death, Tyrone stood over David's body for a moment, swinging the machete around, before walking away and encountering officers on the sidewalk minutes later. As officers approached Tyrone, he pulled the machete out of his bag. Officers drew their firearms and gave Tyrone loud verbal commands to drop the machete, which he refused to do. Officers then shocked Tyrone with a taser and arrested him. Tyrone is charged with murder and possession of a firearm during a violent crime, and he remains held at the Alcannon Detention Center without bond. This isn't Tyrone's first run-in with the law. Police records indicate he has previously been arrested at least 9 times. In 2021, he was reportedly charged with arson and attempted murder after being accused of strangling his cellmate in the Orangeburg County Detention Center. The investigation into the matter continues. "25-year-old Edric Lamar Davis is behind bars for beating his 6-week-old son to death because his crying stressed him out." At 11:11 a.m. on Monday the 10th of June, authorities responded to a home at 3766 Mount Carmel Lane in Melbourne, Florida on reports of an unresponsive infant. When first responders arrived, they found the victim without a heartbeat and not breathing. Medics attempted life-saving measures and transported the child to a hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 11:55 a.m. Medics initially observed a minor bruise to the baby's left shoulder and scratches to his face, but no other outward signs of physical abuse. After completing an autopsy, however, it was revealed that the child suffered multiple internal injuries caused by blunt force trauma, including contusions to the back of the head, an acute subdural brain hemorrhage on the rear portion of the brain, ocular nerve hemorrhages, fractures to the clavicle, tibia, ribs and jawbone, and other signs of severe trauma. It was noted that these were all recent acute injuries that are believed to have occurred in a forceful and intentional manner just before his death. The child also had older rib fractures that were in the process of healing, and a bruise in the middle of the baby's neck that were both indicators of prior physical abuse. The manner of death was homicide, and the cause of death was multiple blunt force trauma. Edric and the baby's mother, whose name remains anonymous, gave consistent accounts of the events leading up to the discovery of the baby. They both said that the baby had been healthy and had no pre-existing conditions to explain his sudden death. The woman said that she had fed her son baby formula and handed him to Edric before taking a shower. She believed Edric fed the baby for about 15 minutes, then placed him on the bed before joining her in the shower. After they finished their shower, they returned to the bedroom to get dressed and found the infant laying face up and unresponsive on the bed with formula purging from his nose. Upon picking him up, the mother realised her son was not breathing and immediately called 911, while Edric performed CPR. Edric at first claimed to have laid the baby down on his right side after a feeding and returned to find out that the child had formula coming out of his nose, but investigators confronted him about the brain bleeding. At first, he acted like he didn't know how that happened, but eventually admitted to causing the baby's death. He described accidentally striking the baby's head on the door frame, causing the baby to cry, and later forcefully hit the back of the baby's head with his knee while trying to prevent him from falling out of his arms. Edric agreed to demonstrate how the baby fell from his arms and struck the back of his head on his left knee by utilising a toy baby doll supplied for him. Despite minimising the incident's severity, Edric confirmed that the child was uninjured before being left in his care and admitted that he was the only person responsible for the injury leading to the baby's death. Edric again spoke to investigators in a voluntary interview on Wednesday the 19th of June. In that interview, Edric admitted that around 10:45 am on the 10th of June, while the woman was in the shower, he forcefully struck the back of the baby's head with his knee at least 2 times. He said that the baby was fussy and crying, causing him to become stressed. Though still claiming it was unintentional, he described how he was holding the baby face to face, and he slammed his body downward to his left knee, while giving at least 2 knee strikes to the back of his head. Edric admitted that his actions alone caused the baby's death. He agreed to document his admission in an apology letter, stating that he struck the baby because he lost control due to stress and was not in his right mind. This letter was submitted as evidence. Edric was arrested without incident and booked into the Brevard County Jail on charges of first-degree murder and aggravated child abuse inflicting harm or death. On Friday the 21st of June, Edric appeared in court where the judge denied him bond. The investigation into the matter continues. Homicide detectives are investigating the fatal shooting of an 18-year-old woman. At 12:22 am on Saturday the 22nd of June, authorities responded to a residence in the Carrick Place Apartments complex in the 6000 block of O'Sweeney Lane in Dublin, Ohio, on reports of shots fired. When first responders arrived, they entered the premises and found 18-year-old Kiara Nelson in a critical condition suffering from a gunshot wound. Medics attempted life-saving measures and rushed her to Riverside Methodist Hospital where she died at 1:51 am. Investigators said the incident stemmed from an argument between 2 others inside the apartment and that Kiara tried to intervene and was fatally wounded when a firearm discharged. Police said they're searching for the shooter and no arrests have been made to date as the investigation into the matter continues. A 31-year-old man is behind bars and is facing a slew of charges, including rape of a mentally disabled person. On Thursday the 20th of June, after a multi-month-long investigation, Middlesex Township Police in Pennsylvania obtained a warrant to arrest 31-year-old Warren Mina, charging him with rape of a mentally disabled person, indecent sexual assault of a person with a mental disability, financial exploitation of a care-dependent person, possession of a controlled substance, and possession of drug paraphernalia. With the assistance of Carlisle Borough Police, Warren was located at the Valley Ridge Apartments complex at 371 Army Heritage Drive in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and he was taken into custody. He was transported to Cumberland County Jail and remains held on a $35,000 bond. A woman is behind bars for stabbing another woman. At 7:26 p.m. on Friday the 21st of June, authorities responded to a stabbing call at a residence along Good Hope Pike in Harrison County, West Virginia, where they advised that the victim had been stabbed in the chest and her throat had been cut. When first responders arrived, they found the victim identified as 31-year-old Sarah Puckett in a critical condition with multiple stab wounds. She was airlifted to Ruby Memorial Hospital for treatment to her injuries, where she remains in a stable condition. Officers made contact with the suspect, 65-year-old Debbie Bice, who remained on scene. Debbie told investigators that she stabbed Sarah with a knife as she was leaving the home, and that she had a dream the night before about killing her. She added that it was her intent to kill Sarah, and that she does not remember how many times she had stabbed her, as she stopped counting after the third stab. Debbie was arrested and charged with malicious wounding, and remains held at the Harrison County Jail on a $200,000 bond. The motive of the stabbing and the relationship between Debbie and Sarah remains unclear, as the investigation into the matter continues. A 41-year-old man is behind bars for attempting to drown his 2 young children. At 2:31 a.m. on Saturday the 22nd of June, an officer on patrol in the area of Ocean Avenue and Arlington Street in West Haven, Connecticut, observed a Nissan SUV parked on the beach along with frantic screaming in the water. As he continued toward the commotion, he found a man and 2 children in the water. At one point the father yelled at the approaching officer to stay away, at which point the officer determined that the man, later identified as 41-year-old Romney Desronville, was deliberately drowning his children. Backup officers were called to the scene, along with rescue boats, and they managed to pull the 2 children, both under 3 years old, from the water some 100 yards from the shore. Emergency services conducted life-saving measures on the children, and they were taken to Yale New Haven Children's Hospital Intensive Care Unit. Officers took Romney into custody. Romney told investigators that he was in a tumultuous relationship with the children's mother, and admitted to taking the twins from their home in Queens, New York. Romney told investigators that he recently found witchcraft material belonging to the children's mother that showed she was wishing ill on another male. Authorities reported that while rescuing the children, Romney was yelling on the beach that the children's mother was going to kill him. Romney told detectives that he drove on to the beach to speak with another child, who had called him and said that the twins' mother was going to call police on him. He said he panicked when he saw the police, and took the children into the water. Romney was arrested and charged with 2 counts of attempted murder, and 2 counts of reckless endangerment and risk of injury to children. Authorities said that the children's mother had rushed from New York in the middle of the night to be with the children, and has been in the hospital around the clock. The children's mother told investigators that she believes Romney has mental health problems. Authorities said that both children have made significant improvements and are no longer intubated. On Monday the 24th of June, Romney was arraigned in Milford Superior Court in Connecticut, where a judge set his bail at $2 million and ordered him to return to court on the 1st of July. The investigation into the matter continues. A former music teacher at Thompson Middle School in St. Charles, Illinois, is accused of having unlawful sexual contact with a child under the age of 13. On Monday the 17th of June, 25-year-old Benjamin Schultz was arrested and charged with 2 counts of predatory criminal sexual assault of a child. Assistant Kane County State's Attorney Morgan Wilkinson said that the charges stem from an incident that occurred sometime between the 1st of July last year and early May 2024. The child was sleeping between Benjamin and his former girlfriend at the time when the inappropriate contact occurred. Benjamin told his therapist about the incident. He contacted law enforcement. Benjamin then turned himself in to authorities and gave up his teaching license. He was held at the Kane County Jail, but was released on the condition that he doesn't have unsupervised contact with children under the age of 18. Benjamin was hired at the Thompson Middle School in August of 2023 and quit at the end of May of 2024. Benjamin has since moved back to his parents' home, about 275 miles away in Quincy, Illinois. His next court appearance is scheduled for the 8th of August. The investigation into the matter continues. A 43-year-old woman has been fatally shot during a domestic violence incident. At around 3:25 p.m. on Wednesday the 19th of June, authorities responded to the 2300 block of Locust Avenue in Long Beach, California on reports of a person shot. When first responders arrived, they found a woman in cardiac arrest with multiple gunshot wounds to her upper body. Despite attempting life-saving measures, she was unable to be saved and was pronounced dead at the scene. The victim was identified as 43-year-old Miriam Zaragoza, and her death was ruled a homicide. Through the investigation, detectives identified Miriam's boyfriend, 35-year-old Timothy Campbell, as a suspect in the shooting. On the 24th of June, Timothy was located and arrested in Los Angeles. He's been charged with murder and remains held at the Long Beach City Jail on a $2 million bond. Miriam is survived by her 2 children. The motive of the killing is unclear, as the investigation into the matter continues. 20-year-old Edward King is behind bars after he travelled almost 1,000 miles from Newark, New Jersey, and snuck into a house in Fernandino Beach, Florida, to beat a man with a hammer over a video game disagreement. Edward and his rival gamer, who about the same age, had never met in person prior to the incident. At around 2 a.m. on Sunday the 23rd of June, the victim's stepfather awoke to the victim screaming for help. When he went to check on the victim, he found the victim and Edward in a physical fight. The stepfather and the victim managed to restrain Edward until Nassau County deputies arrived. The responding deputies reportedly noticed a significant amount of blood in the front hallway and in the victim's bedroom. Authorities said that the victim was playing a video game late Saturday night and into the early hours of Sunday morning. He got up to go to the bathroom, and when he returned he found Edward standing in his bedroom with a hammer in his hand in the air and struck him in the head. Edward was wearing all black, a mask and gloves. The two started struggling, and the victim was able to disarm and wrestle Edward to the ground. Both Edward and the victim were taken to the hospital for injuries, but Edward was released into the custody of the sheriff's office. The victim sustained severe but non-life-threatening head injuries. Edward and the victim reportedly met playing the video game Archage, which is a career multiplayer fantasy game. Edward claimed the victim was a bad person online. Edward arrived in Florida in the early hours of Friday the 21st of June. He told his family he's visiting a longtime friend in Florida that he had not seen in a while. Once in Florida, he purchased a flashlight and a hammer from Ace Hardware. Investigators located his receipt and flight ticket. Edward was charged with attempted second-degree murder and armed burglary, and he's held at the Nassau County Jail. Authorities said that Edward was not cooperating with law enforcement and kept asking about sentencing lengths for breaking and entering an assault. The investigation into the matter continues. Homicide detectives are investigating the fatal shooting of a 57-year-old man. At around 2:30 p.m. on Monday the 24th of June, authorities responded to the Wise Owl Brick House Apartments complex in the 1000 block of West 38th Street in Kansas, Missouri, on reports of a shooting. When first responders arrived, they entered the complex and found a man suffering from gunshot wounds in the common access stairwell of the building. Despite medics providing aid, the victim was pronounced dead at the scene. The victim was identified as 57-year-old Wayne Gordon. Authorities said that several people were nearby when the shooting occurred and are canvassing the area and reviewing video surveillance to help identify the suspect or suspects. The motive of the killing is unclear as the investigation into the matter continues. 27-year-old Naomi Elkins is behind bars for killing her two young daughters. At around 4:50 p.m. on Tuesday the 25th of June, authorities responded to a residence at 19 Shenandoah Drive in Lakewood, New Jersey on reports of a medical emergency. When first responders arrived, they entered the premises and found 1-year-old and a 3-year-old girl in cardiac arrest. Medics attempted life-saving measures on the girls, but despite their efforts they were both pronounced dead at the scene. During the investigation, detectives determined that Naomi stabbed the 1-year-old daughter and then drowned both children in a bathtub. Officers found a serrated knife with a red handle in the sink and 2 bathtubs filled with water. Naomi was taken into custody without incident after admitting that she killed both her children. She said that she killed her 2 young daughters for religious purposes. She told investigators that she started having concerning thoughts on Monday the 24th of May while her husband left for a business trip to Virginia. She said that she dropped her kids off at daycare and spent the night praying. She said she followed a similar routine the following day by taking her children to daycare. After picking them up, she told police that she believed that she needed to kill the children. She said that after stabbing her youngest child, she then drowned both her children. She said she counted to 50 multiple times to ensure she held them underwater for enough time. After drowning both daughters, she realized she had done something wrong and called emergency responders. Naomi was booked into the Ocean County Jail and charged with 2 counts of murder, possession of a weapon for unlawful purpose, and unlawful possession of a weapon. Her bond has been denied. Neighbours, many of whom are members of the Orthodox Jewish community, said that the family moved in a few months ago. The investigation into the matter continues. A man is behind bars after his girlfriend's 6-year-old daughter died from being left in his hot car for several hours. At 5:17 p.m. on the 20th of May, 24-year-old Marquise Outing brought his girlfriend's daughter to the Southern Manatee Fire Rescue Station in Bradenton, Florida, and told paramedics that the girl was not breathing and possibly in cardiac arrest. Medical staff said that the 6-year-old had a core body temperature of 107.2 degrees Fahrenheit and was pronounced dead at 8:16 p.m. that night. When interviewed by detectives, Marquis said that the child was overheated from playing in the park. Authorities said that Marquis's account does not line up and is riddled with inconsistencies, including finding vomit in the backseat of Marquis's car, and that the GPS data determined that she was in Marquis's car for several hours as it was parked outside his job. Deputies were also able to determine that Marquis had picked up the girl from school and drove to the parking lot at around 2:45 p.m. Investigators said he left her in the car with the windows rolled up when the temperature in the car rose to more than 115 degrees Fahrenheit. The mother told investigators that the girl would have been in a booster seat, was capable of climbing out of the car, and had no disabilities to keep her from doing it. While an autopsy confirmed the child died from extreme heat, a toxicology report is still pending. On Tuesday the 25th of June, after weeks of investigating, Marquis was arrested and charged with aggravated manslaughter of a child. He's held at the Manatee County Jail without bond. A 29-year-old man is behind bars for fatally shooting a 35-year-old man. At around 2:15 a.m. on Wednesday the 26th of June, authorities responded to a shooting in the 1100 block of Cypress Street in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. When first responders arrived, they located an unresponsive man with multiple gunshot wounds. Medics pronounced the man dead at the scene. The victim was identified as 35-year-old Jeffrey Fenner. Authorities identified 29-year-old Adrian Hagens as a suspect in the killing, and he was arrested later that day. He was charged with first-degree murder and booked into the Edgecombe County Jail, where he remains held without bond. The motive of the killing is unclear, as the investigation into the matter continues. 32-year-old Michael Hunt is behind bars for killing his wife and mother-in-law. At just after 8:30 p.m. on Friday the 21st of June, authorities responded to a call of a shooting in the 200 block of Pleasureville Road in Cropper, Kentucky. When officers arrived, they found Michael in the backyard of his property at 201 Pleasureville Road, and he told police that someone had been shot near the adjacent Baptist church. Deputies checked out the area, but were unable to find anything. It wasn't until deputies went back and spoke with Michael again that he told them that the victims were inside his house. When deputies entered the residence, they found a deceased woman identified as 56-year-old Beth Simmons on the first floor with a gunshot wound to the head. A further search of the home led to the discovery of another woman on the second floor who had also been shot in the head but was still alive. She was identified as 33-year-old Emily Simmons, Beth's daughter. Emily was taken to the hospital for injuries, but died a short time later. Neighbours said they heard the shooting, but didn't think anything of it since the sound of gunshots are normal in the rural area. One neighbour, Rita Stout, said, "I heard the shots. There were like 6 bangs that went off and I thought it was the kids with the fireworks. So I got up and went to the window and saw one person in the yard, but I thought it was kids." Police said that Michael had blood on his clothing, and they took him into custody for questioning. During an interview, Michael admitted to shooting both women in the head and said that he had a job to take both females out. Michael was booked into the Shelby County Detention Center on 2 counts of murder, with bond set at $1 million. The motive of the killing is unclear, as the investigation into the matter continues. 19-year-old Joshua Wooters and 20-year-old Emily Dickinson are facing murder charges after she gave birth in her apartment, then threw the child out the window onto the street. At around 8:45 a.m. on the 11th of March, authorities were called to 102 Lincoln Way West in McConnellsburg, Pennsylvania, and found an unresponsive infant on the ground. First responders rendered immediate aid, but the Fulton County Coroner's Office declared the child dead at the scene. The coroner determined the victim was born full term and was within 24 hours of death. The cause of death was listed as exsanguination from the umbilical stump. Investigators located a placenta, bloody mattress and other evidence on the sidewalk near the child's body. Joshua told investigators that he didn't know anything about the child when they interviewed him, but in the follow-up conversation, he said that his first reaction of something that's traumatic for him is to lie. Authorities found blood throughout Joshua and Emily's apartment. The windows in the unit overlooked the area where the newborn was dropped. Emily informed Joshua that she was going into labour. She cut the newborn's umbilical cord using a kitchen knife, then threw the baby out of the window while he was in another room. He then asked her, "What the fuck did you do?" The child was reportedly born alive, but Joshua said he thought the infant had died due to blood loss prior to Emily's purported actions. Emily told investigators she believed the child wasn't breathing, but then she started hallucinating. She said she tossed the child because she wasn't thinking clearly and went to sleep. Joshua claimed Emily picked up the newborn like dog poop. Emily found out about her pregnancy when she was somewhere between 20 and 30 weeks along, and she never went to see a doctor. She researched abortions and adoption options. The same day she gave birth, Emily looked up home birth, how long does a bleeding last, and home birth complications from premature birth online. Emily reportedly worked as a certified nurse assistant in Maryland and was looking to move her certification to Pennsylvania. On the 25th of June, Joshua and Emily were charged with criminal homicide, conspiracy to commit homicide, concealing the death of a child, and abuse of a corpse. Joshua is also facing 1 count of obstructing the administration of law. They both remain held at the Bedford County Jail without bond. A 27-year-old woman is behind bars after she ran over a 25-year-old boyfriend and their toddler son, leaving the child in a critical condition. On the afternoon of Monday the 24th of June, Alia Mono Ross and her boyfriend Devon got into an argument at their home in Lake Wales, Florida, about how to discipline one of her 3 children. Devon went outside with their 16-month-old child to calm down, but that angered Alia. While outside, Devon threw a cinder block at a Toyota Corolla, which made Alia even madder. Alia then placed 2 of her other children, a 4-year-old and a 6-month-old, into her vehicle and got into the driver's seat and started following her boyfriend in the car and lunged forward as if motioning to hit Devon. A surveillance camera from across the street captured most of the incident. Devon had the 16-month-old boy in his arms, and as he started to run away, Alia accelerated the car towards them and ran them over before she crashed the car into a neighbour's house. Alia took the toddler she hit and left, but after Devon called her asking her to take the toddler to the hospital, she refused. She then brought the injured toddler back to the house and left him alone before fleeing the scene. Her boyfriend went to the hospital with the child, who's in a critical condition. The child had a broken collarbone, left shoulder and ribs, and also had a partially collapsed lung and abrasions on his body. Devon sustained bruises to his body and lungs. He's since been released from hospital. Authorities said that Alia fled to her sister's house in Orlando, where she was arrested the next day. Alia told a detective that there had been several times in the past that she's acted as if she was going to run over her boyfriend, but she would swerve at the last second to avoid hitting him. She said she assumed because of that, he would have moved out of the way in this instance, but he did not. The other 2 children were located by authorities, and the Florida Department of Children and Families is evaluating their plan of custody. Alia is currently being held at the Orange County Jail, but will be transferred to the Polk County Jail. She's charged with aggravated child abuse, domestic aggravated battery, negligent child abuse, domestic battery, and leaving the scene of a crash with property damage. The investigation into the matter continues. A 63-year-old man is behind bars for killing his 29-year-old son during a domestic violence incident. At 9:09 p.m. on Wednesday the 26th of June, authorities responded to a residence along Homestead Drive in Olmsted Township, Ohio, after Donald Varga called 911 to say he shot his son after he attacked him with a baseball bat. When officers arrived, they met with a distraught father outside the premises with blood on his shirt. While taking him into custody, he pleaded with them to help his bleeding son. First responders entered the home and located an unresponsive man with a gunshot wound to his chest, and a 9mm handgun used in the shooting was found nearby. Medics performed life-saving measures and transported the man to a local hospital where he succumbed to his injuries. The victim was identified as 29-year-old Corey Varga. Authorities said that an argument started over bills and property before it escalated into violence. After a thorough investigation, interviews and reviewing all of the evidence, Donald was charged with domestic violence and murder. He appeared in court on Friday the 28th of June, where he pleaded not guilty to the charges. He remains held at the Cuyahoga County Jail on a $1 million bond. If convicted, Donald faces life in prison with parole eligibility after 15 years. A 50-year-old man is behind bars for killing his 44-year-old wife. At around 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday the 26th of June, authorities responded to a shooting at a home at 14308 Garkin Road in Gonzales, Louisiana. When deputies arrived, they entered the premises and found a woman dead from a gunshot wound. Authorities identified the victim as 44-year-old Brenda Thomas Morris. During the investigation, homicide detectives identified Brenda's husband, 50-year-old Sean Morris, as the suspect in her killing. Authorities said that Sean fatally shot Brenda during a domestic dispute. It's unclear what the argument was about. Sean was arrested that night and charged with second-degree murder, illegal use of weapons, and 8 counts of possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. He remains held at the Ascension Parish Jail on a $2.1 million bond. A homicide investigation is underway after a 44-year-old man was fatally shot inside a family dollar store. Police said that shortly after 11:30 a.m. on Friday the 28th of June, Omar Morritt entered the shop alone at 1908 South Michigan Avenue in Saginaw, Michigan. A short time later, another man entered the business and approached Omar and shot him multiple times. Police said that there was no attempt to rob the store and that the shooter fled the scene before police arrived. Medics transported Omar to a local hospital, but he died from his injuries. No arrests have been made to date, and the motive of the killing is unclear, as the investigation into the matter continues. A mother and stepfather are behind bars after a 2-year-old child was found injured and unconscious. On Wednesday the 26th of June, authorities responded to a residence in the 600 block of Paradise Acres Drive in Boones Mill, Virginia, on reports of an unresponsive toddler. First responders rushed the child to a local hospital with life-threatening injuries. Authorities said that the child's stepfather, identified as 39-year-old Andrew Focus Jr., was taken into custody after attempting to run from police. Andrew is charged with felony child abuse and neglect serious injury. The following day, law enforcement arrested the child's mother, 34-year-old Jennifer Eltis, and charged her with 1 count of felony child abuse and neglect serious injury. Andrew and Jennifer remain held at the Franklin County Jail without bond. Authorities said that the child is receiving medical care and is now in a stable condition. The investigation into the matter continues. A 64-year-old woman is behind bars for beating and stabbing a 90-year-old father to death. At just before 9:30 p.m. on Tuesday the 25th of June, authorities responded to the 900 block of North Atwood Street in Visalia, California on reports of an assault. When officers arrived, they entered the premises and found 90-year-old Don Wirasing unconscious and bleeding from his head. Medics rushed John to the Kauai Health Medical Center in a critical condition, but died there 3 days later. Officers were told that Don's daughter, 64-year-old Victoria Roberts, had assaulted him with a vase and other objects before stabbing him. Victoria was arrested at the scene and initially charged with aggravated assault and is now facing homicide charges. She remains held at the Tulare County Jail without bond. The motive of the killing remains unclear, as the investigation into the matter continues.